You are listening and watching the Secret Teachings radio on YouTube and on X, so long as the technology is actually working. Our YouTube channel has been restricted for 4 or 5 years now, and I just received a notification that it was unrestricted. I've had a lot of listeners ask me to do live streams. I don't like them, frankly. I don't like to be on camera. That's not my preference. I'm a behind the microphone guy. And over the years, I've done a few videos here or there. It just takes a lot of additional effort and work to have the possibility that you could just lose your entire catalog of shows and content. So that's why I've not really done it. I've focused more on audio and creating an audio experience, a theater of the mind, if you will, so that listeners can close their eyes and listen to the content and use their imagination. If I'm describing something, of course, the links to whatever I talk about are always posted below the show description of whatever platform you're on, Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, etc. So what I wanted to do is that I've got this video stream set up. I'm assuming that it's working on all platforms. I've already got several thousand subscribers on YouTube from many, many years ago. And all I would like to do now is to give you a brief introduction to the show. And then what I'm going to do right now live is I'm going to put the show logo back up, and without restarting the stream, I'm going to start the secret teachings for Friday night. Now, it is Thursday where most of you are listening, where I am here. You can see it's much lighter out. It is actually Friday morning. And so because I'm a day ahead, I record the shows usually early morning my time, which are late your time in the United States. I'm over here in Japan, about an hour and a half outside of Tokyo. So I will start the show for Friday. And if you would like to listen to our other episodes, they're going to be in the archive. The links are down below this video. Of all the shows that we've done over the years, and of all of the controversial subjects, the most popular are shows on symbolism and shows on the occult. So that's what we're going to do here, is a show on symbolism and the occult, a normal radio show, but we will, of course, have the video feed still running. Okay, so looking at this week's catalog of shows, if you haven't heard them, please visit the website, and that is tstradio.info. You can see it scrolling through the bottom of the video there, and you can listen to all of the shows for free. We've had some guests on this week and last week. You can listen to those guests for free, or if you're a subscriber of tstradio.info, you can also go to the website and click on the video tab, and you will see that through StreamYard, we've got a handful of shows that are actually already recorded, but for subscribers only, which brings me to this stream on X and on YouTube. And what I'm planning to do, depending on how well this goes, I'm planning to do a Friday night show live, maybe twice a month, maybe once a week. And it will probably be 1 hour, super condensed, maybe 2 hours if there's too much to talk about. But I'm going to try to condense everything down to an hour for the video show. So that will be free to everybody. But of course, the regular free archive has subscriptions in it, or rather advertisements in it. You have to get rid of those ads through a subscription, rather, because that's how we finance the show. No advertisers, no sponsors. You just listen to those ads on Spreaker. That pays us. when you listen. It's free, or you can subscribe to the website. Okay, let me put the logo back up. We'll pause for just a moment, and then we will have the show intro, and we will have, I guess, our first YouTube X video show stream. People request it. I don't like it, frankly, but that's what listeners would like to see once in a while, so we'll do something like that tonight. Let me put the show logo back up. We'll pause, like I said, for just a moment, and then you will hear the show introduction like normal, and you will see a live video show of the secret teachings tonight. One moment. We'll be right back.
Hello? Anybody home?
Today, I want you to open your mind.
I've almost come to the conclusion that the story is so damning that the mass of people can't deal with it.
We are in process of developing a whole series of techniques to get people actually to love their servitude.
We face a hostile ideology, global in scope, atheistic in character, ruthless in purpose, and insidious in method.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
To change the minds and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people to bring about one world socialist totalitarian government.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time.
If you can get people to consent to the state of affairs in which they are living, then you have a much more easily controllable society than you would if you were relying wholly on clubs and firing squads and concentration camps.
Tools of conquest do not necessarily come with bombs and explosions and fallout. There are weapons that are simply thoughts, attitudes, prejudices.
As you connect the dots between different people, organizations, religions, history, suddenly the picture starts to form.
The kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men.
Someone born in the United States is not more special than someone born in Mexico. Someone who is white is not more special than someone who is black. They're just vehicles for the consciousness to experience.
They do not want your children to be educated. They do not want you to think too much.
It was learned that the aliens had been and were then manipulating masses of people through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion.
They reach into our children in music, television, books.
Right, no children's innocence. How can I disprove lies that are stamped with an official seal?
So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it feels like an altar to an alien god.
Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc is now in the possession of the Army.
Too many others know what's happening out there. And no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
Any state, any entity, any ideology that fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for mankind in the Twilight Zone.
It's about time some of you got acquainted with the real hard truth.
It's the heart that says, I will not acquiesce.
Freedom is the privilege to be right. Freedom from the disasters and our mistakes.
You don't connect the dots. It's just a mass of what's all this about.
You are listening to the Secret Teachings Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Gable. The website is tstradio.info. That has our full show archive, all of my books, the montage archive, the document archive, and the video archive, tstradio.info, for subscribers of the Secret Teachings, the ad-free show. Of course, if you're on Spreaker listening, or Apple or Spotify, you will find that the show has advertisements. Those are very annoying, I know, but they finance this show. They are the primary financier of this show. And I want to thank all of you who keep that stream running so that we get paid and don't have to have advertisers or don't have to have people telling us what we can and can't say and can't do. Now, with that being said, there are many of you who might not know this. In fact, the majority of you probably don't know this, But tonight's show is not only a video show that you could access normally in the video archive as a subscriber of the website, but you can watch this for free on YouTube and X, so long as it is not removed. Our YouTube page has been down for 4 or 5 years. I finally received notification that it is back up. And so tonight we are doing a Thursday night broadcast for most of you, but for me, this is actually a Friday broadcast because I am in the land of the rising sun, and it is a day ahead here where I am. So you're watching this live. What is it, about 7:22 p.m. right now, Pacific time, United States? It is, if I check my timer, it's 11:22 a.m. here in Japan on Friday, April 18th. So I'm a little bit ahead of you. And I decided to do a video show tonight just to first of all test the YouTube and X stream out. That's the first thing. The second thing is I've been asked quite a bit to do a video show on occasion. I'm not looking to monetize this on YouTube because you can put up lots of content like I have in the past and have it just deleted. So I don't like YouTube. I frankly don't like Rumble or Odyssey either. I've tried them. I don't like them either, especially the digital currency option, or the crypto option, I should call it. I don't like any of that. I'm an individual who does not trust many people. And so I don't want to invest my time and energy into something that will be potentially or likely deleted and removed because the goalposts for what is considered to be offensive or a violation of community standards, they continue to move, and they might move, in the process of them moving, they might move again, like they're moving in one direction and then they get shifted and move in another direction while they're moving. So they're kind of moving in 2 or 3 different directions at once, getting pulled apart. I would just prefer to have the audio stream. Plus, it's something that allows you to use your imagination to consider what is being said. And I think that having an audio show, not just because of the subconscious, but the use of the imagination, the use of thought is actually refining of the brain. And I think that there's nothing wrong with video shows. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. I watch video shows all the time. But what I create, what I produce, I prefer it to be mainly audio. So you'll find the show Monday through Friday on groundzero+.com as well. Not a live show, but a repeat of an older show. That will be 10 p.m. Pacific U.S. time, I believe, 10 p.m. Pacific. That's groundzero+.com. You cannot go there and find our archive as a subscriber. You have to subscribe to our website. So I wanted to get that out of the way first and foremost before we go any further. There's a lot of things maybe going on as a listener. The bottom line is this: on Spreaker and Apple and all of the other platforms, you'll be able to listen to the show Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And that is totally 100% free. It doesn't cost you anything, except maybe a moment of your time to go click the link and activate it. And you can download the Spreaker app also for free. That doesn't cost you anything. And in fact, when you listen on Spreaker, they actually pay us additional when you listen on their platform. So here is the archive. If you're watching the video, all the shows, and there are thousands of them. And these are just relatively recent shows compared to the massive backlog that I have. And then you can listen to the replays on groundzero+.com. They have a page for us. If you're already on that website, a lot of Ground Zero fans are fans of the secret teachings. In fact, I think I can just show you that quickly here on the video stream. If you go to groundzero+.com, these are, again, older shows. But if you go to show hosts on their website and you scroll down, I believe we are on page 2, and you'll see the secret teachings with Ryan Gable. And you can find the same Spreaker archive, but it's embedded there on their website. And you can scroll through and listen to all those shows. And that still gets us the income and keeps us on air. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So with that being available and with that being free, and then you can, of course, listen to the show here on Fridays on YouTube and X, so long as it's not taken down. All right, that's the housework. That's the house cleaning. That's really all that I think needs to be said. Let's talk tonight about, and let's get into the main body of the secret teachings, and that is symbolism, occultism, magic, for lack of a better word, mysticism, the supernatural, pattern recognition, psychology. I've been doing this for 15 years. And over those 15 years that I've been doing this in both terrestrial radio and in podcasting, guest hosting of big shows and small shows, doing video interviews, I've seen lots of theories and lots of ideas come and go, and then come again, and then go again, and so on and so forth. And some of the most persistent conspiracies, or the most persistent conspiracy theories, or maybe the most persistent and annoying ideas, in my opinion, are that the Statue of Liberty, for example, is Lucifer. It's not. Or that the owl in the redwood forest in California, Bohemian Grove, is Moloch. It's not. Or that every time somebody appears to have an expression or a hand gesture or a piece of clothing or a shadow that might slightly resemble what we call, quote, devil horns, that it has something to do with Baphomet. It usually doesn't, more so because Baphomet is not what people think it is. And those are three really important subjects, because the Statue of Liberty is not based on Lucifer. You can find correlations because we're dealing with similar concepts in terms of light and wisdom and freedom, etc. These are universal things. But the Statue of Liberty was based, as I've pointed out in the past, on Nubian funerary iconography, which is partially Egyptian, partially not Egyptian, but it is, in a sense, it's Egyptian, or it's African. That's probably the closest that most people, including myself, we think of Africa. We think of Egypt. It's that sort of iconography. Now, were there Masons involved in it? Yeah, because Masons build things. That's why the Masons were involved in it. To say that Masonry is evil because Masons have hand gestures doesn't really make any sense to me. I mean, there are secret hand gestures and secret codes, and because I have a code to get onto my computer or to log on to my website, does that mean it's Freemasonic? These are very persistent and very annoying ideas. And I can't say that I haven't been victim to them. I have been victim to them over the course of my whole career at the onset, because I didn't know any better. And then I learned. And then when I tried to share that knowledge with other colleagues, people were they weren't very accepting of it because there was a narrative there. The bottom line is this: the Statue of Liberty is not Lucifer. And the proof of that comes in a variety of forms. The Nubian historical facts, first of all. But second of all, the idea that there's an image going around the internet with the Statue of Liberty as Lucifer, and the image that is shown is actually a painting it's a really zoomed in, close up painting of Satan, not of Lucifer. And there's a big difference between the two. It's not like a little difference, there's a big difference, because Lucifer is, yes, a bearer of light, of course, but Lucifer is also something else. Lucifer, as a result of that light, is he who dazzles, he who makes beautiful or bright or attractive, he who in essence tempts through material or carnal things. And the devil and Satan, two likely as well distinct characters, non-like characters, like Lucifer and Satan are different. The devil and Satan and the devil and Lucifer are different. Satan is the adversary, the oppositional force. Satan is a necessary evil because, for example, if you've ever had to do any kind of physical therapy, the resistance, or if you do weight training, the resistance builds stronger muscles. It helps you to recover from an injury. Stretching is also probably the best example of Satan. Stretching is satanic because it is an oppositional thing. You're pulling, you're twisting, you're turning, you're stretching things out. That is Satan. Satan is the adversary, the opposition. And the devil, of course, is the inversion of living. And so if you're alive, well, your body is warm. When you die, your body goes cold. That's why in Dante's Inferno, the devil is actually frozen in a block of ice. Frozen solid in a block of ice. The devil is not burning in a pit of hell and is not going to bring you to a pit of hell. It is a hell perhaps that you create for yourself, and that is a state of being alone or being depressed, or if you've ever in your life, probably everybody has, if you've ever been lied to or cheated on or stolen from or violated in some way, that's all Satan. It's cold. People would say it's evil. But Satan really isn't evil. The devil is evil because the devil, D-E-V-I-L, take the D away, you get evil. But if you reverse that, you get lived, or you get live, or even love, L-O-V-E, E-V-O-L. That's love. That's life. The devil is the opposite of love and the opposite of life. And so those things, as in with Satan, this oppositional force, these oppositional forces of the devil is basically the Grim Reaper. The devil is basically he who takes you to the other side, the underworld, the other dimension, or the parallel world, the upside down world. There are various names for it throughout human culture and mythology. That is the character who takes you to those realms. Okay, so I want to show you, because I can on the video here, I want to show you some of these images that I'm talking about, because I think it's important to see them firsthand, which is one really cool, positive, beneficial aspect of doing a video show, even though I would really prefer audio. But let's take a look at some of these images so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about here. Okay, so here is the image that goes around the internet. Painting of Lucifer, Statue of Liberty. Oh my God, they're almost identical. Well, sure, I mean, I guess it's close to identical, but if you look at the original painting, not the same. Not the same. Not the same. This painting is called Satan Summoning His Legions, 1796, 1797, by Sir Thomas Lawrence. Now, does that picture look the same to you? Like maybe if I zoom in really close to it, it does. This is the stuff that really irritates me and makes me upset, because this is the kind of stuff that goes viral on the internet. And it's a lie. It's a distortion. I would assume most people sharing it don't know it's a lie. They're not intending to lie. There's no context. Where's the context in that image? It isn't there. So this is actually an old painting, and it's a painting of Satan summoning his legions. It's not a painting of Lucifer. Okay, and then you look at other images, right? This is an image of Mithra. And it's kind of funny that anybody would type in those words Lucifer above Mithra because Mithra is kind of the opposite of Lucifer. Sure, Lucifer is a bearer of light, but a bearer of false light. Prometheus bears light. Mithra bears light. Mithra is the unconquered sun. Mithra is not Lucifer. This is Luciferian, satanic, devilish hysteria. It's a modern satanic panic, except it's a Luciferian satanic panic. These are not the same thing. Lucifer, liberty. I mean, the rays of the sun are pretty universal. In fact, my favorite goddess, not my favorite myth, one of my top 5 favorite myths, but my favorite goddess, and I've been to her sacred shrine over here in Japan. My favorite goddess is Amaterasu. And you can see Amaterasu has, look at that, sun rays, because she is a goddess of the sun, who also goes into a cave for 3 days and is resurrected, which is relevant to this Easter week for those of you who celebrate Easter. And if you look at the larger paintings of Amaterasu, you will find that, as in this example here, this is one of my favorite paintings, one of my favorite images. You can actually see a lot more happening here. Not only does she come out of the cave, you see the light, but she also is standing next to this tree here. You see this tree? It's kind of hard to see it because of the rays of the sun, but if you zoom in, there's a tree here. We know it's a tree because in the myth, this is really important to tonight's show, in the myth, in order to get her, Amaterasu, to come out of the cave, these other kami or goddesses, they decorate a tree and they hang a mirror, kagami, from the tree, little tassels and things like that you can see. And they dance and they're merry and they're happy and they're trying to encourage her, come out of the cave. That sounds very similar to something that a lot of people celebrate every year called Christmas, where we decorate a tree and we celebrate the resurrection of the sun. This is the winter solstice. And we are merry and we give gifts, just like Amaterasu brings light back to the world and warmth back to the world, which is made cold and dark by her absence. It is a world dominated by Satan and the devil. Now, this is Japanese. This is not Christian. This is not Western. This is as far east in the world as you can go before you make it to the west coast of the United States. And this is a universal symbol. There it is again. There it is again. There it is again. There are different forms of darkness, right? There's a darkness, as in the dark night of the soul, which is a necessary transformative process. There are different forms of light. Not all light is good light. Some light takes you, puts you into a trance, and you get zapped like an insect. There's a dual nature to these things. Okay, so now that I've showed you that, it's very important to have this basic understanding. I want to show you something else. Here is Moloch. You know Moloch, right? You type in Moloch, you don't get Bohemian Grove. You get these kinds of images. The sacrificing of children, the references, of course, in the book of Leviticus. This is a very, very, very famous depiction of Moloch here. Moloch is a bull god. See that? This was actually an oven, and they would put babies into the oven. Okay, so that's Moloch. Moloch is a bull. But if you look at the Bohemian Grove owl, well, that's not a bull. So you cannot say this is Moloch, because this is not Moloch. I'm not sure what image I clicked on here. Is that Pinterest? What the hell is Pinterest? I can't stand these websites. I'm sorry. Let me pull that back up again. Bohemian Grove owl. I really don't like social media, folks. I'm a very antiquated guy. Okay, so here is an image of Moloch, or at least they tell you that's Moloch. It's actually not Moloch. Why is that not loading? Okay, anyway, that should do. If I can, nope, it wants to go back to Pinterest. Okay. Okay, there's the owl. That's not the same thing, is it? It's not even close to the same thing. Because this is a bull god and this is an owl god. Those are different things. That's important. Okay. This owl god is actually, and it appears in a variety of forms around the world, but you know it perhaps as Minerva, as Athena, or perhaps you know it as Lakshmi. There's a variety of different owl gods and goddesses. We have them over here in Japan too, the golden owl. I've been to one of the shrines. I've touched the golden owl because they represent wisdom, knowledge, education, being able to see in the dark, a 360-degree view, turning their heads in an uncomfortable way. And so, yes, when the global elite go to Bohemian Grove and they perform the cremation of care and burn their cares away, well, that's what Buddha told us to do. Meditate our cares away, our senses, our emotions, turn our brains off. So it makes sense that that's what's happening under that owl, is that they're burning their cares away, whether or not it's an actual child or an effigy or there's actually screams over the loudspeakers. I've heard it and seen it. There absolutely are. The bottom line is, though, it's not Moloch. Okay, Moloch is a bull. This is an owl. Let's get our creatures correct. So that's bothersome to me. It's bothersome. It's like, it's annoying. Because again, the Statue of Liberty is not Lucifer, and the owl of Bohemian Grove is not Moloch. That's really important. Now, the third thing I said was a character named Baphomet. Baphomet is a really, really, I would say, how should I put this? Complicated figure. A very complicated figure. Why complicated? Because we've made it complicated. Ultimately, it's actually quite simple to understand what Baphomet is. And I will show you a couple of examples of this. And we're going to start with an image that has been circulating the internet for the last 48 hours because of this Blue Origin flight. Okay, the image that you see on the screen right now, and for those of you who can't see this, I'm looking at the NS-31 patch of the Blue Origin spacecraft mission, the all-female mission, inverted and turned upside down. And there have been some sleuths, a lot of sleuths that are going around the internet, and they're pulling the Eliphas Levi picture of Baphomet, and they're putting it next to the logo and saying, see, it's Baphomet. Katy Perry worships the devil. Now, maybe she does. I don't know. Okay, but that's not really the point. The point is, sure, it looks like a goat. So did that Prince Charles, King Charles painting. That kind of looked like a goat too. This one's very clearly a goat. And it also looks like there are maybe flames. Of course, it's a rocket ship, but that's what they want you to think. It's just a rocket ship. It's really Baphomet and the devil. Okay, well, let's just say this and put this out in the open, that obviously NASA, although this isn't NASA, this is Bezos, but NASA has named their programs after Mercury and Saturn V rocket. Artemis, that's a relatively recent mission. Apollo, the infamous Apollo missions. So we know that's a thing. In fact, you can pull up, I think that NASA published an entire mythological list of missions. There's a whole PDF that you can pull up and read about it. It's really interesting. So yeah, like absolutely. In fact, one of the greatest rocket scientists of the 20th century was Jack Parsons, who was, I don't know if he was obsessed, but maybe close to obsessed with the goat god Pan. And there's a lot of references to this on the internet. You can find evidence of this if you'd like. The bottom line is this: Jack Parsons, when he would do his rocket experiments, would have these prayers that he would recite, meditations perhaps, that he would meditate on the image of the goat, Pan. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's two main reasons. Number one, Pan is the god of fertility. Okay, and as a god of fertility, that's not just sexual fertility, that's also fertility of the mind, fertility of your endeavor. And if your endeavor was to launch a rocket successfully, then you would want a fertility symbol or a fertility god watching over it so that hopefully this experiment becomes fertile ground for success. That's one level of it. Another level is a rocket is shaped and looks like a penis, as you've definitely noticed in the Bezos rocket that kind of looks like something from Austin Powers. Like quite literally, it looks like Dr. Evil's rocket. That's a penis. But like George Carlin said, it's all penises, right? Look at the Bush administration, George Bush and Colin Powell and Dick Cheney. It's just a big prick waving contest. Now, this is a natural penile projectile. It's not a joke. I'm not laughing. It's a natural penile projectile. There's your penis rocket. And that, of course, is a pretty important thing if we're talking about something called fertility, right? If we're talking about something like a goat god who is the god of fertility. Okay, that's pretty important. All right. So if you look at this image, people are saying, oh my God, look there. You can see there's the goat. That means that this was a satanic, demonic, evil. I don't know what the hell people are talking about, quite frankly. We just throw some kind of reference to Baphomet into the equation, and that's what it becomes. Like I'm not exactly sure that's what it becomes. It's all the devil or something. Okay, but if you take a close look at Baphomet, as I've pointed out for years on the Secret Teachings, of course, those shows nobody can see those because the algorithms don't care about objective analysis and historical fact. They care about sensationalism and hype. But take a look at Baphomet and you'll see something quite obvious, although that's not the whole image. It's also zoomed in, so you're kind of missing some key points there, like the black moon to Baphomet's bottom left, your bottom right. But Baphomet has the caduceus in the middle, right? There's the caduceus in the middle. The caduceus in the middle, that's male and female. That's yin and yang. You see the as above, so below. People say that, so it's demonic. You also see he's got what looks like a tattoo, solve coagula. What does that mean? Solve coagula. It means to dissolve, to break down, to build back up. That's alchemy. And then you see the horns, which are pointing up, and you see the torch, which is pointing up. That's Jesus crucified in the middle of the two thieves. That's right. Jesus is actually crucified on the head of Baphomet, on the skull of the goat. That is Jesus Christ crucified. Right there on the cross, that's Jesus, the way, the truth, and the light, and the life, and all those things between the two thieves. But it's all pointing upward. And you notice that the pentagram is also pointing upward, which draws the four elements into the fifth element, which is, well, that's spirit. It's not an evil symbol. Can it be used as such? You bet you. But it's not an evil symbol. Okay, so that's the patch. There's Baphomet. And this is the current, I guess we could call it, hysteria around this Blue Origin launch. Okay. But I want you to look at this really, really close. Look at this really, really close and consider what I've said. Fertility, rockets, fertility. You also want a successful mission too. You'd want a successful mission because there's a lot of money and there's lives and there's a lot of stuff riding on this penile projectile. Now, as we observe this fact, we can also observe other things around the internet, like the Lucifer Statue of Liberty story, the Moloch owl story, and so on and so forth. And you see what's popular. The popular things that are all over the internet are things like, well, look, it's Baphomet. And it's like, well, yeah, kind of, maybe, yeah, sort of, but it's not. How do you define Baphomet, etc.? But then it's also, just sitting back and watching the conspiracies. The people go crazy with conspiracies. You know that this rocket launch was fake, right? You know that this capsule, this was CG. And hey, maybe it was CG. Maybe it was. Hey, Katy Perry's a clone, right? Katy Perry's actually a reptilian, right? You know that, right? I'm sure there's people listening to me right now that are thinking, well, that's what I've been saying. See, other people think it too, even though I'm making fun of it and joking about it. I don't think that she's a reptilian. I actually don't even know what the hell people are talking about anymore. I'm so, I guess, behind or ahead or to the side. I think I'm to the side. Like I don't know what this is anymore. It's like the intelligence community preventing the public from really trying to, I guess, having any accurate information about anything. It's pretty US centric, but it's not solely just in the United States. Okay, maybe that's fake, that image you see on the screen, the capsule touching down. Kind of like that what was it, the Indian space capsule? Like that, yeah, that looked like a video game. It did. Okay, but my question and my curiosity isn't so much about the nature of the rocket launch or whether or not it was fake or does space exist or something like that. And my curiosity is not really about Katy Perry being a clone or maybe some kind of I don't know, some kind of I don't know what people are talking about. Whatever the theories are, whatever goes viral overnight, and whatever Q tells you to believe, that nonsense, then sure, that's okay. Believe that. But I think there's more to the story, and I don't even think that it's a conspiracy. I just think it's a natural realization that we come to, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Okay, so you have this Blue Origin rocket launch and capsule return on April 14th. And that's an important date for a number of reasons, which we'll come to here in a moment. But this capsule, this rocket launch, this mission was called the New Shepard. Now, the reason it was called the New Shepard is because it was dedicated to Alan Shepard. And apparently, this rocket took the same course as Alan Shepard had taken. And you had Gayle King, who was saying, they're calling this a ride, not a flight or a journey. That's offensive. It should be a flight. It should be a journey. That is until you look up the definition of ride, which is literally a flight or a journey. So apparently Gayle King does not know the definition of the word ride. Not that inspirational for young girls and not that inspirational for young girls who might seek higher education. Gayle King, I don't think, is that educated based on that unbelievable, I don't know if I'd call it a gaffe or if I'd call it just stupid comment. Okay, but so you got this New Shepard and you got this all-female crew. And it was launched April 14th. Now, this is an important date. In fact, April 14th is the Ides of April. There's not just the Ides of March, there's the Ides of April. Every month actually has an Ides. Ides just means the middle of the month. And it's important because April, in fact, not just the Ides of April, but the whole month of April is a historically significant date on the calendar. The whole month is because of something that we refer to as the burning season. It's the burning season because it's springtime and the sun is back and you have these beautiful flowers blooming. We just had the sakura flowers bloom here in Japan. Very beautiful. And the burning season takes us largely from April 14th through May 1st. Technically, it's just a 3-day festival And May 1st, May Day, is what we know as Beltane. But throughout history, there's been more than just Beltane. In fact, some of the most significant dates on our calendar, at least from I would say, a Western or a North American perspective, U.S. perspective, all happened in April. For example, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., the sinking of the Titanic, the death of Franklin Roosevelt, which of course led to Truman dropping bombs after Japan had surrendered. Oh, because the U.S. rejected the surrender until they dropped the bombs to test to see what they would do. That's what it was all about. Assassination of Abraham Lincoln, the Boston Marathon bombing, Virginia Tech shooting, Nova Scotia shootings, the Waco shootout, the Oklahoma City bombing, the Columbine shooting, the execution of Benito Mussolini, the death of Adolf Hitler. All of this took place, and much, much more, in April. And these are huge turning points in history. The death of Roosevelt, the death of Lincoln, the death of Hitler, although he probably didn't die, he probably made it to South America, and the death of Benito Mussolini, among other things like the Columbine shooting, the Oklahoma City bombing, which led to more restrictions and violations of constitutional liberties under the presidential pen, Bill Clinton, and the Waco shootout, among other things like Virginia Tech, et cetera. So those are all really, really important historical dates. It's all part of the burning season that is Beltane. Okay, so what we're looking at here is not some kind of, I don't think, grand conspiracy, but there's an energy to these months. Months are named after, and days of the week are named after, and have some association with gods and goddesses, leaders, energies, spirits, things like that. For example, we know that Sunday is the day of the sun. We know that Monday is the day of the moon. Tuesday is the day of war. Wednesday is the day of Wodan, the chief god, or Odin. Thursday is Thor. Friday is Freya. And Saturday is Saturn's day. So if you look at the days of the week, or you look at the months of the year, January is Janus, sees into the past and into the future. A lot of it has to do with the Roman system of counting. So you have December is actually the 10th month, so that's Deca December, but we have 12 months now. But that gives you an idea of course, you have like August, Augustus, and so on and so forth. June, Juno. It's a great month for childbirth and for marriage, etc. Okay, so they're all named after gods, goddesses, imperators, etc., etc., etc. So there's an energy to these days, and there's an energy to these months as well. It's a natural energy. These planets, these energies, they have their own signatures, they have their own symbols, they have their own magic squares, their own numbers, etc. Okay, so if we're taking all of that into consideration, and we're looking at all of these conspiracies all over the internet, the rocket was fake, the return capsule was fake, it's all staged, it's all real, but Katy Perry's a clone. There's just endless numbers of these kinds of theories, or these kinds of stories, or what I don't even know what the hell people are talking about anymore. So while all of that is going on, there's something underlying these conspiracies. Okay, so I want to take a look at some of these conspiracies, or some of these comments, and go just a little bit deeper. All right, here is Azalea Banks, who has been peddling these conspiracy theories about how the Blue Origin flight was fake. Okay, and these celebrities make these comments. There's a lot more celebrities tapping into this. People will say, she's 33 years old. Oh my God, what does it mean? It means she was born 33 years ago. That's what it means. Okay, so I'm sorry, 15 plus years, going on 16, I'm like an old guy that's just tired of it. But there's a lot of celebrities, not just people, but celebrities promoting these conspiracies. And I wonder if that's because they believe it, or if it's just because they get paid to say something, or whatever the case is. There are others who are, well, as this particular article from the LA Times says, others that are disgusted, just disgusted with this event, this all-female rocket launch. Somebody named Emily Ratajkowski. Okay, she is an author, a model, and an actor. And she said the following. You can see on your screen. I'll read it to you. It just speaks to the fact that we are absolutely living in an oligarchy where there are a small group of people who are interested in going to space for the sake of getting a new lease on life, while the rest of the population, most people on planet Earth, are worried about paying rent or having dinner for their kids. Okay. That's the metrics of it. Like, it kind of feels like that. A bunch of rich people, a bunch of celebrities going to space, and the rest of us have to stay behind here on Earth, like that movie Elysium. I mean, the optics of that look bad, and they are. And there are other optics that I think add on to that complement that. For example, I'll look this up in live real time here on the internet. If you go to the internet and type in Kardashian, might be the first time I ever typed in Kardashian on my computer. Kardashian gifts UFO bag, like unidentified flying object. Kardashian gave Bezos's, what is it? His wife, his plastic doll. I don't know what she is. She is an ugly, ugly woman. Jesus Christ. I'm not going to have any sexual feelings for months after looking at her face. But the Kardashians bought her and gave her a gift of it's like a $6,900 something UFO bag. Gave her a UFO bag. I read that this morning. I thought, well, that's really interesting. A UFO orbiter bag. You can see that on the screen. It's a purse that looks like a UFO. Okay, which is, again, part of the equation. If you're new to the Secret Teachings, we like to build a show. And as we build the show, we learn more. We go back to certain things at the beginning of the show, and we put all of this together. Okay, so keep this UFO bag in mind. Okay, and then there's stories like this, which you might think I agree with, but I really don't. But there's all kinds of stories that are saying, why do people think these are fake rockets and fake capsules and fake this and that? I mean, that Sanchez girl's pretty fake lips, fake tits, fake personality. She's probably the fakest thing. Even if the rocket was fake, that girl is faker than the rocket is. But then you have these explanations. No, it's space, and we love space, and science, and hashtag I believe in it, and all that. And I don't agree with that either, for the record, because I'm not on board with the conspiracies, or, well, really the alternative explanation or the mainstream explanation. Okay, and then there's the fake hand. Somebody found a fake hand on the launch. I'm not sure why there was a fake hand, or why people think that that's significant. What did they have? They had fake hands, and why would there be a fake hand? I don't even know what that conspiracy is. It looks like it's actually worse than a Bigfoot photo. Look at that. They circled in red, so you know it's true. They found a fake hand. Maybe that's Sanchez's hand. If it's Sanchez's hand, yes, it might be fake. It might be fake. It's possible that it's fake. Okay, so you see stuff like that. And then, of course, there was the door issue. And if where the door, it's like a super thin door, and there was an issue opening inside, outside, and Bezos goes to open it. You can see the video on the screen, and it just kind of like falls open. It's not really that secure. Just looks like a cheap little, I think my tent that I used to have was more secure than that. Doesn't really look like it's that strong. But then again, I don't know. I'm not an aerospace engineer, so who knows? Maybe this material is very strong, and it's a lot different than space capsules we've seen in the past. Again, I'm not really concerned with any of that. If someone told me tomorrow, here's the physical proof, it was fake, I'd be like, oh, okay, I believe you. I'm not really shocked by those kinds of revelations, because I believe very little is in context real, whatever you define that term to be. It wouldn't shock me, and you wouldn't have to convince me. But if you're trying to convince me, I need more evidence than that. And it's not something you're going to convince me of one way or the other, because, like I said, I don't really think that I agree with the conspiracies, but I also don't agree with the explanations on why the conspiracies are wrong. I just don't really want to participate in any of that. Okay, and then I saw an article about the NS-31 logo, which is the logo of this mission. And you see this logo upright. I showed it to you reversed. This is the upright logo that you can see on your screen if you're watching the video. And you can see these are probably, now that we've turned it upside down, these are clearly the faces of women, because it inspires young girls to become billionaires and go to space. That's, I guess, what they're suggesting it does. I'm not really sure. I'm being highly sarcastic, of course. So this is the logo right side up. And you can see the faces of the women. There's 6 faces, 2 orange on this side, 2 orange on this side, 1 black, 1 black. And there's the rocket in the middle. Now, I've heard people point out, but there's a star at the top of the rocket. And I'm thinking, yeah, what's that supposed to mean? There's a star at the top of the rocket. Like, think, McFly, Jesus Christ, my God, it's just so annoying. So there's the logo. Okay, there's the logo. And they have a description of what the logo, represents. Okay, so they have this is like a post from Blue Origin on, I'm guessing that's X, and they describe what all of this represents. I guess they don't have a link to the star, so it's an Illuminati star. Ooh, it's an Illuminati star. Okay, so the firework symbolizes Katy Perry's global influence across music, pop culture, and philanthropy. So you can see the firework there. This is what they tell you. Scales of justice that you can see, very small scales of justice, symbolize Amanda, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, Nguyen's efforts to advocate for civil rights, break barriers. Oh, they're always breaking barriers and empower everyday people to create change. The shooting star microphone, you can see that on the bottom right, represents Gayle King's commitment to sharing important stories with the world. Maybe she should pick up a dictionary because she doesn't know what the word ride means. Okay, that's just really embarrassing. And then you have what looks like, what is that, a film reel, symbolizes, how do you pronounce her name? Carrie Ann Flynn's passion for filmmaking and storytelling. And Aisha Bowe's ambition is symbolized by a smaller star, and that represents STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. And then there's the Lauren Sanchez star. And it's easy to have a best-selling book when the guy that you're having sex with owns a giant book distributor, and you have billions of dollars. It's great to have a children's book that's a bestseller, The Fly Who Flew to Space. And that's there on the logo. So that's what it's supposed to represent. It's supposed to represent something about each of these women, and it's supposed to represent the women themselves. I think they should have made all 6 of these images black. That's inclusive. Or maybe all 6 orange. We have to respect the orange people. But that's what it's supposed to represent. You turn it upside down. I showed you. It kind of looks like Baphomet is what people say, but I've explained this to you. Now, we're going to jump across a barrier here for a moment, and we're going to look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk has SpaceX, which is a leader in rocketry. Blue Origin is, I'm not sure how you'd classify it in terms of an order, but Blue Origin's probably a close second. I don't know if you can really say one's top, but Musk's company is probably the top, or whoever runs it is probably the top. We know he doesn't really even play all of his video games, so it's doubtful that he even runs all these companies. Okay, but he said something really interesting. This was just in the news less than a day ago. He's the father of 14 kids, and he said he wants to have a legion level of kids before the apocalypse. That's the report. Rather than digging into it substantially, I wanted to point out the biblical reference to legion. If you go to the book of Luke 8:26 through 39, you can read this very, very famous chapter where Jesus meets a demon-possessed man. And Jesus asks the demon, "What is your name?" And the demon replies, "Legion," because many demons had gone into him. And they begged Jesus repeatedly not to order them to go into the abyss. So a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and the demons begged Jesus to let them go into the pigs, and he gave them permission. Now that's the scape pig. The scapegoat is largely the reason why we have this very negative image of goats, like Baphomet, because most of the sins of a community were placed into a goat, Azazel, for example, and driven out of a community. The Jews were common perpetrators of this ritual. And we know Azazel, Yom Kippur, the driving out of the sins of the community. I don't think the Jews were the only ones that did it, but they were very famous for doing this with the goat. That's part of the reason goats became known as symbols of the devil. And of course, the black billy goat, Billy, Bill, Bell, Ball, the devil. So this is in the book of Luke in the Bible, Legion. It's kind of like a pop culture thing too, like Legion. Those are demons. So Elon Musk wants to father a legion of children. And as the world's probably leading technocrat, very few come close, maybe Yuval Harari, but as the world's leading technocrat who is essentially summoning or conjuring artificial intelligence and putting microchips in people and driverless and then self-driving cars that don't have drivers at all as an option even. You put all of this together and the push for the North American Union and Bitcoin as a replacement for the dollar, says Larry Fink. We did a show on that relatively recently. And so on and so forth. There's so many different examples that could be given. And a lot of people, therefore, put Elon Musk into the category of an antichrist. And so it's kind of weird that he would say, I'm going to have a legion of kids before the apocalypse. Like, you'd probably, if he was still voting blue, you would probably say, well, that's just more proof that he's the devil. He's the antichrist, like everybody else was. Hitler was the antichrist. And I don't know if Mao was the antichrist. Mao might have been an antichrist, but, Hitler was an antichrist. And people say that, hell, I've even heard Arnold Schwarzenegger's the antichrist. I've heard all kinds of things. Everybody's the antichrist. Everybody gets a car. Everybody's the antichrist. Well, the antichrist is a spirit. It's an energy, like Al-Dajjal. It's an energy. It's a spirit. And anybody can become possessed by the spirit of the Antichrist. Perhaps Musk is possessed by the spirit of the Antichrist. Perhaps he wants to have a legion of kids before the apocalypse because that has a literal meaning. Probably not. Perhaps it's kind of a play on the biblical meaning to troll people. It could be anything. It could just be coincidental. I don't know. But if this were a blue guy saying this, he'd be the devil. And in fact, when blue people do those kinds of things, like Jeffrey Epstein wanted to seed the human race with his own DNA. Here's an article from the USA Today about Epstein wanting to impregnate bunches of women at his New Mexico ranch. He wanted to freeze his head and penis. He had all these top scientists working with him. This is one nobody ever believes me, but this is it. He wanted to freeze his head and his penis, and the head of the penis too. And he wanted to create a race of super Epsteins, I guess. Okay, so if Epstein does it, bad. But if Elon Musk does it, good. Are you following along? If Epstein does it, he's a pedophile, child trafficking, psychopath, Lebensborn program, wacko. But if Musk does it, team humanity, winning, right? So let's pay attention to that hypocrisy and that glaring, unbelievable contradiction of beliefs and priorities. Okay, so let's go back to Pan, the goat god, fertility. Musk wants his ventures, Bezos wants his ventures to be fertile. But the rocket is also inherently a penile projectile, and it penetrates the Earth and it enters into space, the void, and then it drops down the load, not trying to be gross or vulgar, back onto the Earth. That's an important key point in tonight's show. But fertility, summoning legions, you would need to make sure that there was a lot of fertility to summon legions through impregnating women with your DNA. Okay, so let's take all of that into consideration. Let's think about that for a moment and process what that could mean. So the preparations for this Blue Origin flight were lengthy. They've been talking about this for a while. In fact, I did an entire episode on this subject years ago. And I will show you that episode. So if you don't believe me, like I did a show on this a while ago, like a long while ago, 2 years ago. Here is the show. You can still go and listen to it. This is from my private archive, but it's called Crotch Rocket, a small step backwards for women. And you can see what I wrote on the show. This is the description of the show. And I want to read it to you because part of it anyway, because it's important, frankly, it's important, especially because this Blue Origin launch is supposed to be some kind of like for the women. But there's one little problem with that. It actually kind of deletes real women. Okay, in this show that I did back in February of 2023, I talked about how there's going to be, and I'll blow it up here again on the screen so you can see it. How there's going, you can read it right there. That's what I wrote. How there's going to be, this rocket launch. They're going to send these women into space. This was the plan. Okay, and I said on that show that there's something going on here because yeah, it's a PR stunt using women as the hook, and it doesn't really make any sense because you've got these really wealthy women that are going to be shot up into space. This is what I had said in 2 years ago, 2023. And it's all about women and women and women and women. It's like, well, what about the women that came before? What about Kalpana Chawla, the first Indian astronaut? This woman had 2 advanced engineering degrees and a PhD in aerospace engineering. And get this, pioneered vertical takeoff and landing concepts that are now being used by SpaceX and Blue Origin. So while Bezos is sitting there saying, and the media is sitting there saying, it's a great day for women, and we got to show young girls that you too can have a relationship with an abusive sex addict like Russell Brand, who possibly rapes women or whatever they say he did. I don't know. I'm not even sure if I believe it. I don't think he's a good guy either way, though. I think he's using Christianity to get more of a following like Justin Bieber and others have. It's just marketing. But you too can date Russell Brand, and you can also go to space, as if that's like the thing that we should be achieving. And it's really insincere and kind of disgusting because the rockets that they're using, including SpaceX, not just Blue Origin, a lot of the math and the engineering and the science, a lot of the STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, for that rocket actually came from a woman. And have you ever heard of this woman? Have they ever told you anything about this woman? I would put some money down that no, you haven't heard about Kalpana Chawla. And there she is on the screen. There's the woman who basically revolutionized rocketry for SpaceX and for Blue Origin. And they don't seem to use her face anywhere. So it's really weird that they would shoot up a bunch of really wealthy billionaire type, just gross women and say it's all about women and empowerment, but then leave the woman that actually kind of engineered the rockets out of the equation. So in other words, they're using this technology and dismissing the person who invented it, and then saying, "Look, Katy Perry," and it's really gross. It's really disgusting. I mean, frankly, that's where my old kind of classical liberalism comes into play. The part of me that is like a little bit on that side, because like that is, you know, that's pretty unequal. It's pretty gross. It's pretty disgusting. But hey, that's what we do. We're all really good at that. And instead of the political right pointing this fact out, they ignore it too, which makes me think that, it's all just a big game if we're talking politics. Okay, but then there's a whole bunch of other people included here that we should talk about. Peggy Whitston, for example. He holds the record of the most cumulative days in space, over 660, I think 665. Then there's Christina Koch, holds the record for the longest extended stay in space for a woman, 328 days. She also participated with Jessica Meir in the first all-female spacewalk. Then there's Kate Rubins, who was the first astronaut to sequence DNA in space. Okay, Aline Collins earned 4 degrees in STEM, economics and management, while finding time to also be a U.S. Air Force pilot, and eventually became the first woman ever to pilot the space shuttle. All right, you ever heard of Kate Rubins? Okay, and I'm being sarcastic, all right? She docked with the Russian space station and facilitated the deployment of the Chandra X-ray Observatory. There's no, Women's Day where we remember her. The first African-American woman in space, Ma Jameson. Born in Alabama, earned an engineering degree in her teens and a doctorate, became an astronaut, carried out 44 science experiments in space. Probably never heard of her. Nicole Mann became the first Native American woman in space just a handful of years ago. Then there's the first American woman in space who always kind of gets forgotten. You'd think that she'd be a pretty important, maybe you'd bring her name up if we're talking about women in space, but they don't for some weird reason. And that is Sally Ride, who had a PhD in physics. She has NASA missions, a bunch of them under her belt, the first American woman to successfully do these things in space. And it's just like, oh, unless you're like really a nerd and you read about this stuff like I am, nobody talks about this. She was also, Sally Ride also investigated the Challenger disaster and the Columbia crash. The first 2 women in space were Russian, Valentina Tereshkova and Svetlana Savitskaya. I like Russian names. So when you kind of dismiss the first women in space and the first women to do a lot of things in space, I think that's kind of offensive. And you replace them, because this is what they're doing. You're replacing this woman on your screen right now. See this woman? You're replacing her with whatever creature this is. I'm not sure what it is, but whatever creature this is, that alien is being replaced by this genius. That's what they're doing. And I know that the political right and the political left, politically, if we're talking politics, don't point this out. And I wonder why that is. Why is this creature from the crypt replacing this genius who engineered and was pretty instrumental? She's not the only person, but pretty instrumental in putting together the components that, if the official story is true, allowed this creature to go to space and come back in one piece. But instead, this piece of plastic gets the credit, and this genius gets forgotten. That's a pretty weird and creepy thing, isn't it? Because it's not like this information is private or secret. Like, you can go and research and reference all the things that I'm showing you, and you'd find out that I'm right. And you'd find out that once you learn it, you'll be right when you say it. And it yet doesn't get injected or incorporated at all into any of the conversations. Why is that? Why? Okay, so preparation for the Blue Origin flight, it would have been weeks, months, years, as I've pointed out in advance. However, pre-flight, began just before the launch, of course. Pre-flight began on the weekend of Palm Sunday. And the launch occurred on Holy Monday, April 14th, Holy Monday. That's interesting. Why? Well, because this is Easter week, right? And as with the return of spring and the resurrection of Christ on Easter Sunday, both relating to death and life and rebirth, so does the Blue Origin capsule and mission exemplify these characteristics, from the all-female crew to the message of unity and peace, and finally to the nature of the rocket itself, which resembles an erect penis with an exaggerated head. As I've already shown you, it looks like Dr. Evil's rocket from Austin Powers. That's all fertility, the universality of the female and the bearer of new life, penis rocket, the womb capsule. It even has, the characteristic white head of a sperm being dropped down from the heavens into the soil. The sun will bring warmth and nurture it, and then it will sprout forth a new being. In our case, we're talking primarily about the springtime, which is what Easter is all about. So this penis projectile penetrates the blue sky above. Okay, there's the penetration. And then it drops, not trying to be vulgar, but it drops its load back down onto the earth at the onset of spring and the burning season. The capsule carrying the women was named the New Shepherd. Can you think of any relationship the New Shepherd might share with Easter? Anybody think of any kind of relationship the shepherd might share with Jesus? Okay, John 10:11, I am the good shepherd. But it's not just Jesus, because Orpheus was known as the shepherd. And one of my favorite characters, Hermes or Mercury, the guide of souls, Psychopomp, was also known as the good shepherd. And Hermes, like Jesus, Jesus is the way. Hermes was also known as the preserver of the way, or what was called the path, P-A-T-H. And these are shepherds. These are civilizers. They brought civilization. They herded the sheep, much like Quetzalcoatl, much like Osiris, or the green god of Egypt. It was Osiris who presided over the Hall of Judgment in the underworld. You notice that Osiris is green. He's the green man. He's the god of agriculture. He is the seed that is planted. Just like this seed here on the screen was planted into the desert in Texas. This sperm that came back to earth to impregnate the earth, giving birth, changing seasons. Cycle continues, the cycle proceeds. So Osiris presided over the Hall of Judgment in the underworld. What exactly is the Hall of Judgment? It's kind of like Judgment Day of the Christians. It was a place where the heart of the individual, so the heart, your heart, would be weighed against that of a feather. So you have this image of a scale. One side is a feather, one side is a heart. Now you would think a feather and a heart. Well, a heart would weigh more. Well, we're not talking about the physicality of these objects. If we're talking about physicality, sure, the heart would weigh more. But we're talking about spirituality. So what's in your heart? How much grief or regret or weight is in your heart? If the heart weighs more than the feather, well, that's not a good thing. It's one of the worst things that could happen to you, because if the heart weighed more, heavy with desire, heavy with regret, etc., it was consumed by a great beast called Ammit. Not something that you would want to come into contact with. Ammit is a very nasty looking creature, crocodile, lion, hippopotamus. It's a nasty looking creature. It is pronounced Ammit, and you can look up the name Ammit. And in fact, I could probably just pull up and show you this, because we got the video stream going tonight. I will show you some of this stuff. I'll look it up in real time. There is Amet. And I don't like Wikipedia, so you could kind of scroll down, go to something like an anthropology website or a mythology website or something like that, encyclopedia. But that's in essence, that's Amet. And the Hall of Judgment in Egypt, if you type that in and look it up, Hall of Judgment, Egypt, I spelled judgment wrong. Oh, man, maybe I need to go back to school with Gail King. Was that her name, Gail King? Okay, so this is the Hall of Judgment in Egypt. Find a good actual picture here. I've got watermarks on them, but that's the general idea. That's what you're looking at. Here's a good example of it. You'll notice in this image, the heart and the feather. There's the god Thoth. Okay, and there is Horus, and again, I think this is a reproduction. There are lots of different depictions or versions of it, but Osiris is the one who oversees this entire process. And Osiris is the green god. You can see on your screen, I'll bring that up. The green god. You can see he has green skin. So he is the green god. Agriculture, fertility, the Osirian seed. All of that's really, really, really important. Okay, so he holds these two objects. He holds the crook and the flail. That's the X, which is the Osirian pose, which you all pretty much know. The X marks the spot. What's under this pose? The heart is under that pose. Heart. That's the gold. That's the treasure. Okay, so the Osirian pose. These objects that he holds, herds, the rams, the sheep, and the bulls. Now, sheep, he's a herder, he's a shepherd in more ways than one. And he oversees the Hall of Judgment. And if your heart, your desires outweigh the feather, well, then your heart, your soul, gets consumed by Amet. If the feather weighs more, then you are able to pass on to the next level of the afterlife. It's funny, if you type in Hall of Judgment, you get Bible Hub, Bible Gateway. But if you type in Egypt, you'll see where it initially came from, at least in, say, in part. It's not like the Egyptians invented the concept of the afterlife, but you have Yomi over here in Japan. But there's worldhistory.org. This is a pretty good website for history if you don't have books available. The Hall of Truth, and you have these, these sayings, the 40, so I think there's 42 confessions of Ma'at, goddess of truth and justice, married to Thoth, god of wisdom. Through wisdom comes truth and justice, is the idea. There's the judgment, the afterlife, and there's Osiris presiding over it. There is Horus, there is Thoth, there is Anubis, there is Amet, and you can see the heart and the feather on this scale. Seems to be in this particular depiction, the feather weighs more. That's good. The feather weighs more. You move on to the next level of the afterlife. This is a good thing, right? You pass into something called the field of reeds. And the field of reeds, like the Elysium fields of the Greeks, is the underworld. It's the land to the west. It's the land that is far away. I'm looking to my right because this, where I'm sitting right now, I believe that direction is the Western world, and that direction is China from where I'm sitting here in outside Tokyo. But you go to the land of the West, which is where the sun sets. So Set or Seth, where the sun sets, and that is where there is darkness, the black sun. That's where the souls go. It's also known as the halls of Amenti. But these are the fields of reeds. Okay, so let's take this into consideration when we go back and we look at that field where that capsule touched down. I did some reading just out of curiosity, And I found out something quite interesting. Although Egyptian reeds don't grow in Texas, similar plants and reeds do. And not only do they grow in Texas, which is a pretty monstrous state, certain plants and reeds actually grow in the area where this capsule touched down, which is a critical detail because the capsule, the sperm head, strikes the ground in the field of reeds. So this is the land of the dead, or this is the underworld. And then they open the door, whether it's fake or not, and there's a resurrection of these 6 women, like Amaterasu coming out of the cave, bringing light and life back to the world. I don't know what Sanchez and Perry and these other women bring back to the world, but they're bringing something back to the world. It's the idea that young girls can also bang Russell Brand and then make a music video with Kanye West and then go to space and act like they're now morally superior or something. But you see the kind of imagery here, the type of thing I'm talking about. Okay, and the logo of the Blue Origin company is a blue feather. That's the logo of the company. It's a blue feather. And that blue feather is a really key symbol. It's a really key symbol because for me, it reminds me of something we've talked about before. Remember, there's a company that used to use a blue feather called Twitter. Oh, it's a blue bird. Well, birds have feathers, so it was blue feathers. Okay, the blue feathered bird. And also, there's another company, right? Isn't there another company that uses the same, I guess you could say, blue symbol? What's that other company that uses the blue symbol? Well, Blue Sky. So you have Blue Sky, which uses a blue butterfly, and you have Twitter, which is its partner company, founded by the same people. Twitter, blue feather, replaced by the Osirian X, and just like Space X. And then you have the partner company, although it's super liberal, but it's different, but it's the same, but it's different. And that is the Blue Butterfly company, which is Blue Sky. So let me show you those on the screen. Look them up right here in real time. Here is Blue Origin logo. See the blue feather? As I'm pulling this up right now for those of you watching the video. The Blue Origin logo. Okay, Blue Origin logo is this. There's their whole website, Blue Origin. It is a blue feather. You can see their website. You can actually see the capsule there. It says shepherd for those of you questioning whether or not it was actually called shepherd. There's the shepherd. And there you can see the little blue feather on the screen. There's a larger version of it there. The blue feather. Okay, then there's Blue Sky social media, super left-wing social media platform, and they use a blue butterfly. See the blue butterfly there. And then there is the blue bird of Twitter. And all of this is important. This isn't just like, oh, it's blue, so there's a relationship. No, there's a lot more to it than that. I'll explain in just a moment. So there's the blue bird. I guess sometimes the white bird, but there's the blue bird, replaced by the X. X marks the spot, the soul, the heart, weighed there in the hall of judgment, in the underworld. Osiris overseeing the whole thing. Okay, so the logo of Blue Origin is a blue feather. You have Blue Sky, Twitter X, and all that I just showed you. Now, one of the most famous people inside the capsule is someone I've kind of poked fun at tonight, and that's Katy Perry. Do you know what Katy Perry's nickname is? Katy Perry's nickname is Feather. Why is that important? Maybe it's not important, but it's a little important. Her nickname is Feather because feathers are light, and feathers are, Well, they're symbols of the soul, kind of like butterflies are. Think about that. Like, okay. And then remember that video she did called Dark Horse. You just type in Dark Horse on the internet and you can see the Dark Horse imagery, let's call it. Egyptian iconography. You can see the Katy Perry Dark Horse video. I think did she win an award for that or something? I think maybe. Okay, so that imagery is Egyptian. And very clearly, Katy Perry knows a little bit about Egyptian imagery. Her nickname is Feather. She also did an interesting video where she was in space with Kanye West. And that video, I could just pull this up and show you too. Let's see, Dark Horse Egyptian. You can look at the imagery of that so you can, I'm sure you believe what I'm saying, but I'll show it to you anyway. There she is with the blue eye of Horus. Okay, and then that doesn't mean she's in the Illuminati for the record, but there's Katy Perry in the Dark Horse. And then Katy Perry did a song called E.T. with Kanye West. She's kind of a blue alien. And this was one of the promotional images for it. And here is probably one of the most iconic pictures from the video. E.T. extraterrestrial. This is how the video ends. She's like a half human, half animal hybrid, and she's like going to have sex with a robot or something. That's an old video. Okay, so now she's in space. Now she's made it to space. And the whole ritual itself, from the Shepard capsule to the penis rocket to the dropping of the white sperm head load into a desert full of reeds and other plants that resemble the reed afterlife of Egypt, and how you get there is having the feather, which is usually blue. I used to have a little statue of Anubis holding the scales, and the feather was blue, which is usually blue, represents the soul, the blue butterfly, the blue bird, consciousness, etc. If that weighs more, you get transported to that area, that field. Okay, and Katy Perry's nickname is Feather, and she's got the Egyptian iconography and the alien stuff and all this. That's interesting. It's also interesting because in 2019, in the social media post, Perry references Egyptian mythology, and particularly the fact that the heart should weigh less than the feather. She's not a dumb person. She knows her mythology. She's even said that. Now, symbol dictionaries will tell us that a bird represents thought, imagination, synthesis, and sublimation. In Egypt, the bird was called Ba, the soul, which is why you've probably seen images like this. We type in Egyptian Ba, and you'll see like a little bird with a head on it. Famous image. Here's the body. I think I even have that in my my book, Occult Arcana. So there's the soul leaving the body. And there's also the Ka. Actually, you can just look at, there's Ba and there's Ka. And you can read about them in an encyclopedia if you are curious. But it's the Egyptian concept of the soul, the part that has been material and the part that has never been material. So it's the soul, like a butterfly is the soul, or as the Greeks say, the psyche. Okay, so symbol dictionaries will tell us a bird represents thought, imagination, synthesis, etc. In Egypt, the bird was Ba. Okay, Ba was the soul. A bluebird, in particular, is a representation of pure conscious thought. And I know that not because I'm a genius or something. I know it because I read a book, the Symbol Dictionary, by a guy named Serlot. It's an older book where there's a reference to blue birds. Not just birds, but blue birds in particular represent consciousness. They represent pure thought. And so Twitter having a restriction on what you could say, not in terms of censorship, but in terms of the limited amount of characters, unless you can pay for it now, but before you know, or even if you don't pay for it, you can only write so much. That's a restriction of pure thought and pure consciousness. And what lies under the X is the gold, the soul, the heart, speaking from the heart. Well, you're limited in how much you can actually speak from the heart in more than one way, because there is also censorship. Okay, blue butterflies in particular represent the same kind of a thing blue birds do, but they also represent transformation. They also represent spring. The butterfly refers to the soul or mind. It is the psyche, or the psyche of the Greeks. Katy Perry is also on the video. There's a video, you can watch this on the Blue Origin website, or I have pictures here I can show you. There's a couple of news articles, a couple mainstream articles where they talked about the video and what they were showing them on the video, the gravity. And Katy Perry, I don't know if they all did this, but I know Katy Perry definitely did this because I have the pictures of it, where she holds up some interesting things. She holds up a blue butterfly. Interesting, because we're talking about a blue feather and Blue Origin, and her nickname being Feather, or like a reference to the soul, and then blue butterflies and blue sky. That's a social media platform separate from the Bluebird of Twitter, and she holds up a blue butterfly. People say that's the Illuminati, it's Project Monarch, and then they have these like links to Project Monarch. It's like, yeah, we know about Project Monarch, we know about Northwoods, we know about all this stuff. Okay, we're aware of that. That has very little to do with what Katy Perry is holding up, because that is the soul, that is the spirit, that is consciousness. And we know the references in the context because she also does this and holds up a little white daisy, or what appears to be a daisy. I guess you could debate it, but it appears to be a daisy. Okay. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, that's pretty interesting. It's interesting not because it's just a flower. It's interesting because of the symbolism of a white daisy. And just off the top of my head, obviously in the top of your head, white is purity, right? So again, reference to the soul. Blue is like consciousness and thought. That's why the Hindu gods are blue. That's why the Popol Vuh describes the creation of the world in blue and green. Green is like an aquamarine blue. The spirit, the soul or consciousness, wisdom. The Greek Sophie or Sophia, she is kind of blue. Purple is used as a symbol of royalty. Jesus, Christian churches still have the purple. I guess it's like a robe that they put over their crosses. Even over here in Japan, a lot of Buddhist temples, they use purple. It's a sign of royalty and respect in the imperial lineage here in Japan. It's a universal thing. But these different colors, which are symbols, but they all have a very similar meaning. Blue is consciousness. White is purity. Consciousness should be pure if you want to have God consciousness, I suppose, as opposed to Antichrist consciousness. But here's Katy Perry holding this blue butterfly, and then holding the white daisy. And that image there in particular, it's just kind of creepy. I don't know, something in her eyes. I don't know what it is, but it's a little bit creepy to me. Okay, now these flowers represent, like butterflies and birds, they represent and they symbolize the same type of a thing. But they have a direct correlation to a couple of things. Number one, they have a direct correlation to the Norse goddess Freya, for whom Friday, as in Good Friday, was named. Furthermore, in Christian symbols, a white daisy, what she's holding in her hand, what you can see there on the screen, a white daisy is the flower of the Virgin Mary. Now that's interesting, right? Because it's Easter week, and we have the rebirth or the resurrection of Christ, like Amaterasu, and so many others, Attis, and so on and so forth. But the Virgin Mary is also something else. The Virgin Mary, and there's a lot of, I guess, debates on these kinds of things, but the Virgin Mary, as well as Mary Magdalene, are both shepherds. In fact, Mary Magdalene, it is Magdal Elder, the watchtower of the flock, the same flock that the shepherd watches over. This is also something we find in Ireland, the Irish goddess Brigid, who presides over the festival of Imbolc, which begins the springtime. the initiation of the spring. The winter is over. Imbolc, a holiday celebrating the end of winter. She's known as the Exalted One. Well, the Virgin Mary's exalted. Mary Magdalene used to be exalted too, but not as much anymore. But she is a goddess of healing, fertility, and birth. Bridget is known as Bridget as well. She also has a famous cross. I could show you the Bridget cross if you'd like to see it. But she's a goddess of fertility. She helps women in labor. See these same fertility symbols, pawn, the rocket, all this popping back up. Spring is, of course, when the earth is reborn. Some people, as I've pointed out, have shown you the NS31 logo and said, that's the devil, that's Baphomet, okay? That's what it is. And they tell you that. It's confirmation. They know that for sure because they saw a video on TikTok. Well, if you look at that image, as I've explained, the goat is fertility of both the mission, but also of something else. Fertility of the earth, the fertility of humans, the fertility of the mind, and so on and so forth. Okay, and that's probably one of the most misunderstood symbols in the Western world. The goat is Capricorn. The goat is Cernunnos. The goat is Pan, and various other characters with horns and features that remind us of the devil. Okay, and that's where the imagery comes from for horny, to be sexually aroused. That's where we get it from. The horns of these characters. And since I have the video stream going tonight, I will show you some of these characters too if you've never seen them before. And if you're listening just in audio, thank you for listening to the broadcast tonight. Spreaker, wherever you're tuning into the show, we have a live stream on YouTube and on X. First time I've ever done this. I'm probably going to do it maybe twice a month, maybe once a week. But again, most of our income comes in through the free show archive. So I can't just give the show away for free. As you can imagine, that this takes a lot of time and effort to put this together and to be objective about it on top of that. But let's look up some of these deities. You can see some of these other horned gods, also known as the god of yoga. This Celtic god, the god of yoga. Where's the original image at? Here's the original image. God of yoga, but controls the snake. And what is the snake? The snake is the penis. The penis is its fertility. So controlling your desires. In fact, if you look at the images of, I think it's Krishna, Christ, meditates with an erect penis because he's able to just put the sexual animal impulses out of his mind, just like Buddha under the Bodhi tree is able to reject the advances and the temptations of the women that are presented to him or the other carnal delights that are presented to him. In the same way that Jesus rejects the food and rejects the kingdoms of the world because he's already the king of the world. It's the same type of imagery that we're dealing with. So there's one, and let's see if I can find the other one here. Let's see. Yeah, Capricorn 1. Capricorn the goat. There's Capricorn and the zodiac, the horns, the goat. Okay, and I believe, find another image here. Capricorn is Saturn. Would you look at that? Our good friend Saturn is back. So what does that mean? Well, Saturn is the Grim Reaper, the man with the scythe, the white beard, death, etc., Father Time, etc. Pretty important because in the stories of Saturn would sit in a field and he would speed up time to watch a flower die, but only to bring the flower back to life, to resurrect the flower, to bring the flower back to full bloom. And it's not that Saturn was literally sitting in a field controlling time. It's that he is the god of time. And so as he's in the field, he is time speeding up, slowing down in the story, but it's really just the natural progress of time. You have birth, you have life, you have death, and you have resurrection in the next generation. And that's how the story goes. Okay, so there's Katy Perry back on the screen with the white daisy. Now, all of this, when you put it together, indicates that there's an underlying theme here. The underlying theme is not space is fake, or Katy Perry's a clone, or she's a reptile, or whatever whatever the hell the stories are this week. I don't know. Whatever the algorithm says is okay. Whatever some letter of the alphabet tells me to believe. But I'm not telling you to believe anything, nor am I saying don't believe me because I want you to go research it yourself. I've showed it all to you tonight. If you got a capsule called Shepherd and you're using the blue butterfly and the white daisy, and that's a symbol of Mother Mary, the Virgin, and this capsule comes down after being launched on Holy Monday, and it was prepped on Palm Sunday or the weekend of Palm Sunday. And it's a penis rocket, and it comes down to Earth, dropping its white sperm-like head into the ground in a field of reeds, similar to the reed field in the Egyptian mythology. And you only get there when the blue feather in the Hall of Judgment weighs more than the heart. As I said, it's usually a blue feather. And that's also the logo of the company, Blue Origin, which shares a lot in common with the blue sky butterfly, which Katy Perry even holds up on the capsule, although it's not blue sky. It's a blue butterfly like blue sky uses. And with the Twitter bird, X. And who runs that? Well, another guy that does rockets, SpaceX, like the Egyptian X cross on the chest, or the Osirian pose, which is a seed that is planted in you, like this seed planted in the desert, the kind of place that Jack Parsons used to go and recite poems and conjure or invoke the presence of Pan to have a fertile rocket test. As you can see here, this test was fertile and successful, whatever it was supposed to be, or supposed to encourage people to think, or young women to believe, while it simultaneously writes out real women that should maybe actually be included in the conversation if we're going to have one. And all of this revolves around fertility. Even if you're looking at the image of the logo from the NS-31 mission patch, yeah, you can see the women there and the star, and you can see the scales, and you can see all this other stuff. But if you flip it, there's your flipping of the logo. Oh, you see the goat. Well, I mean that is fertility. That's fertility. And what is the fire? Well, the fire is the desire. That's the desire. That's why that part of the body down there is the red chakra, because it is a very, very, very sexual necessary evil, I guess you could say. But it's a very sexual part of the body. The rest of the body is very sexual too. The whole body's sexual, but that's the place. And of course, because of the wavelength of red, close to void, close to black, which is why red and black are typically symbols of Satan. You see that in Star Wars. You see that in, I don't know, maybe movies with cults. But red and black are the symbols of Satan for that purpose. It's the fire that burns in you. That's the billy goat, the temptation, all the sins that are driven out of a community. You want to read that in the Bible, it is Leviticus 16, 8 through 10. In fact, I should just pull it because I have the ability to. I could pull that up on the screen too, so you can actually see that in the Bible. But what all of this tells me is that whether or not it's intended to be this, I don't really think that it is, but it's a fertility ritual. Again, I'm not saying that's what it is, like that's what it was supposed to be, but that's what it comes out to be. That's what it looks like. It looks like a fertility ritual. Shepherd, Easter week, Palm Sunday, Holy Monday, Good Friday, the blue butterfly, the blue bird, the blue feather. Feather is the nickname of Katy Perry. I mean, I don't know, what do you think? Do you think that's silly? I feel like it's all in context. And this is when we talk about these types of subjects, whether you call them synchronistic or occult or whatever the term might be, these types of things are not like three people in a room planning to make all of this look this way for some sinister reason. One, it happens naturally because you see, I mean, my God, let me show you this on video. I can show you the plug from my little portable heater. You see that? That's penile, that's sexual, and you plug it into the wall. Okay, so one's yin yang, one's yang yin. I mean, that's the yab yum, the yin yo. There it is. See that? That's male. Okay, this is a little portable Japanese heater. The people that designed this heater didn't say we're going to make the end look like a penis. It doesn't look like a penis, but it is. It's penile. Okay, it plugs in, and then there's an electrical transfer, which is what sex is, and the spark of life, the orgasm inside, that spark of life during conception, that spark of light during conception. So that's what it is. Same thing with the rocket. It's not like Jeff Bezos said, let's do a fertility ritual. I'm going to send my girlfriend up into space and she's going to come back down. I'm going to have an issue with the door and people are going to think it's not real and it's a conspiracy. That's not, I don't think how any of this works or what any of that means. I think all that's just kind of silly. All that's kind of noise. I think that there's a much more objective and rational way to explain all of this. And it takes a lot to get there. It takes a lot of reading. It takes a lot of memory. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of making mistakes. It takes a lot of time and effort to come to what ultimately is not really, I don't really have a conclusion. Like I'm not saying that this is some kind of thing that you need to be aware of and scared of, or it's none of that. It's just, this is the evidence I provided. And it seems as if what we're looking at is an Easter spring fertility ritual, which is what spring has always been. It is a fertility ritual. Yeah, that's what Easter is. It's a fertility ritual. And fertility in many ways, fertility of the mind, fertility of the body, fertility of the land. This is probably the best example of it, fertility of the land. You know, and if the capsule head was green, I'd say, well, okay, like it's green, like agriculture, like Osiris. If it was brown, I'd say, well, brown's also soil. Black, also soil. Like you can do this with anything. It's not that it's just entertaining. It's that these kinds of observations help us maybe more so to understand our ancestors. It helps us more so to understand the myths and the stories and the archetypes. Helps us to understand what Joseph Campbell was writing about. Helps us to understand what Carl Jung was writing about. It helps us to understand, you know, our pop culture even more. It helps us to understand what it means to be human, which is when you understand myth, that's what it helps us to understand. It helps us to understand who we are, what the purpose, what the point of all of this is, if there is a purpose or a point. That's what it helps us to do. Now, are there Illuminati type people, whatever you want to call it? Yeah, there are people like that, big corporations and people that conspire in secret to do things. Yeah, but just because you see a goat head doesn't mean that it's the devil. And if it is the devil, well, what's the context of that with Satan and with Lucifer? These are different characters. Just because you see a 40-foot stone owl, 40-foot tall stone owl, doesn't mean that it's Moloch, because Moloch is a bull. Now, maybe there's references to Moloch as an owl, but that doesn't make any sense because they're sacrificing a child or an effigy or whatever it is at Bohemian Grove to this owl. They're burning away their cares. I don't trust the people necessarily that go to that. Okay, but if they say they're burning away their cares and they're doing it in front of an owl, that makes sense because that owl is Lakshmi, that owl is Minerva, that owl is Athena, that owl is Buddha, that owl tells you to let go of your thoughts, let go of your emotions, let go of the stressors in your body, let go, let go, let go. And as you let go of all that, your cares are burned away in the fires of the world, and you can transcend or ascend beyond, which is another interesting word because as we talked about earlier this week, the word ascension Has nothing to do with levitating. It has nothing to do with paying someone $333.33 for some ascension course or learning what an ascension symbol is. Ascension means you've realized I'm a soul. I have a soul. I'm a spirit. I have a spirit. I have a non-material part of myself. We all know that. It's called emotions. We have intuition. We have instinct. Those are animalistic on one level, and they are divine on another level. Okay, the instinct is kind of animalistic and carnal. The intuition is kind of divine. Two different parts, okay, of the spectrum. One is low, one is high, like between the base chakra of red and the crown chakra, which is usually like a light purple or white. Those are the two ends of the spectrum. And we are soul and spirit, which are in the heart underneath of the Osirian cross. And all of those things, whether you think of them, we all have our ideas of, Kundalini, or we all have our ideas of what is spiritual or metaphysical. Like, these ideas are obviously in the New Age movement, and they're in ufology, and they're in Sedona, Arizona, and they're in this little town of Ino up in Fukushima, Japan. I went to. They're all over the world. They're universal things. They're largely misunderstood, like Baphomet is, but they are symbols of us as humans, what we are, non-material. When you realize that non-materiality of the self, that's when you ascend. That's why the plateau of Giza is called the portal or the gateway of ascension in more modern terms. But in the old world, it was called the womb of Isis, because it was used for initiations that would lead one to recognize that they are not just material. And when you realize that, you don't start levitating. When you realize that, you ascend, or you kind of transcend the typical, kind of carnal things about the world. You transcend the mundane. You go beyond. And when you go beyond that, well, that's the mind of God. You can get there through meditation. You can get there through letting your thoughts and your emotions and all of that, your instincts and all of that go. Being mindful of your thoughts, that's important. That's obviously a big key part of Buddhism. And when you're able to do all of this stuff, that's ascension. And it's really quite that simple, especially from a modern perspective. Like, a lot of this stuff we already have an idea of, we already know, we just kind of inherently know. And it's happening on different levels, right? It's happening with the sun. It's happening with our soul and our spirit. It's happening on a micro level and a macro level, which is what this symbol shows us. If you're looking at the screen, you'll see Baphomet pop up. That's what that symbol represents. As above, the sun is resurrecting, the sun is coming back to life. And as below, the dark night of the soul, we are resurrecting. And what is this body? This body is the tomb. This body is the sarcophagus. This body is the pyramid. This body is the temple, right? Because we know that in the Bible, the body is a temple. And this is a universal idea. It's not just in Corinthians, it's also in Buddhism. It's also in Islam. That's why the Muslims don't eat pork and don't drink alcohol, right? Because their body is a temple too. It's a temple to Allah, because Allah is God. Our bodies are temples, whether you're Christian, whether you're Buddhist, whether you're Muslim. Jews have very strict dietary restrictions, whether you're Jewish, Hindus have very strict dietary restrictions. The Seventh-day Adventists, they have the same type of a thing. They're probably more famous for that. And this is a religious, theological thing as much as it is a cultural thing. And why? Because your body is a temple for the Holy Spirit. And what is the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit is the soul, the non-material part of ourselves. That's what this is all about. That's what the Blue Origin is. That's what the blue sky is. That's what the blue bird is. That's what Katy Perry's little white daisy is. That's what it's all about. It's about death. It's about birth. It's about resurrection. It's about Jesus. It's about all of the other deities and gods that came before and came after. They're all archetypes of the same idea. And to me, there's nothing evil about that. However, when you take these ideas and you take the necessary evil of Saturn, for example, and you use it for the weightfulness and the strength of it, and you don't balance it, and you just worship that weight and that heaviness and that darkness, then yes, it becomes evil. And there are lots of people that certainly do that. And for those of you watching the video, I have intentionally positioned the video to look the way that it does tonight, because here's a great example of perspective. For those of you not watching, I'm sitting in my little studio, and you can see on the screen I have a little tapestry behind me. It's called Noden, little Noden behind me. And it appears as if I have devil horns, doesn't it? Looks like I have devil horns. The whole time Ryan Gable's been speaking, he's got the devil horns. But if I tilt the camera, you can see what it really is. I've done this intentionally. It's actually an Enzo. I'll move out of the way so you can see it. It's a circle. In calligraphy, when you are able to write it perfectly, you've achieved a sense of enlightenment. An Enzo is E-N-Z-O-N-E-N-S-O. Enso is perfection, like a wedding ring. It is unity. It is to bind and to bound something in a positive way. I mean, if I look at this and I have the camera tilted down, I have devil horns, and then I move it and you can see the Enso. Well, those are the carnal horns of the devil, if you will. And then there's the spirit of the soul, which has always been represented by a circle. And so we ascend. Let me ascend with you into the circle. And now I have the rays like Jesus does, or Amaterasu does on my head. There's the rays of the sun surrounding my head. I think that's beautiful. I think that makes a lot more sense than screaming about how everything's a conspiracy or screaming about how everything's not a conspiracy. I think that there's a lot more we could do with our time, a lot better things we could do with our time that make a lot more sense, that are more rational, and that are much more educational, much more enlightening. And guess what? That doesn't cost you anything. It takes you time to realize it, but it doesn't cost you anything. No money. You don't have to pay me to ascend. Okay? I just showed you what ascension was. Conceptually, that's what ascension is. That's what the transformation is. That's what the butterfly is. The butterfly is transformation. And that's, I think, what the Blue Origin story is. That's what the rocket launch and the capsule coming back down, that's what it represents. All missions represent that. It's all sexual in nature. It's all penetrating in nature. It all has to do with the penis and the vagina, the yin yang. Sexual energies that are not always sexual in the sense of like actual sexual intercourse, but sexual, or I should say male and female in terms of the energies of light and dark and heavy and light and things of that nature. Okay, so I think the stream went pretty well. I'm not sure how it came out. If there were probably places where there was a little glitching or it didn't process as well. I'm going to check the comments on X very quickly here. Again, you're listening to The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, Spreaker, or our website, tstradio.info. The links are all there in the archive. Let me pull my X page up and we'll see if there are any comments. Pull this up on my computer. I was going to try to do it on my phone. My phone's not working. Let's see. So this is what I don't like about live streams, is that, something doesn't load, something doesn't work, and then you get the, hold on a second, let me try to pull it up, and it just kind of wastes time. But let's see where this live stream is coming in. If there's any comments. I think there's probably a couple comments here. I don't think it goes to Facebook. I know it goes to X. There we go. There's a couple comments on that show. Actually, we have several hundred people watching the show. That's cool. Hello to everybody on X. Thank you for tuning into the show tonight. And I know this is on YouTube for sure. Yeah, there's a couple people on here. Oh, here's Todd Jones. It's good to see you doing the occasional live stream. Your information is always important. I thought of you when I saw people commenting on the symbols from that so-called space journey. They were immediately calling it a satanic ritual. Yes, Todd. Yes, they were. I guess if people don't understand fertility symbolism, then yeah, sure. Marion May, hello. Jerome, thank you for listening to the show. A couple hundred people there. And then, of course, YouTube as well. People listening on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Maybe we'll do more like this. But remember, the main way that this show is supported is through subscriptions and through listening in the free archive. So we'll do hopefully a lot more of this in the future. All right, stay safe, stay informed, stay healthy. I tell you that at the end of every episode, and I mean it. Thank you for listening to this show. This is my life, and this is probably your life. If you're listening to this show, this is what you care about and what intrigues you and fascinates you. And so I guess you could say we're on this journey together, taking this ride together. If you want to support the show, visit our website, thesecretteachings.info, tstradio.info. Subscribe, get access to all of it, the books, the archive of documents, the montages, the video presentations, and here's the subscription tab there. We have a lot of different subscription options, including a lifetime subscription now that we have. But there it all is, tstradio.info. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. I really appreciate it. It's very humbling. And I hope that you have a great night, evening, morning, wherever you're listening. It's morning here where I am. It's night where most of you are. I hope you have a great morning, afternoon, night, etc. And I will talk to you on the next broadcast. tstradio.info, rdgable@yahoo.com. Speak with you on the next broadcast. Please share the links to the show.